Sometimes a band's biggest break comes when you least expect it. A new voice steps up to the microphone, and suddenly everything clicks into place. The chemistry changes, the sound evolves, and the records start flying off the shelves. It's happened more times than you might think in rock and roll history. Today we're looking at 15 bands that became more successful with a new singer. Number 15. AC/DC with Brian Johnson. When Bon Scott died in February 1980, AC/DC faced an impossible decision. The band had built a loyal following through the 70s with Scott's gritty vocals and wild stage presence, but they'd never broken into the mainstream the way they hoped. Their albums sold respectably, especially in Australia and the UK, but American radio largely ignored them. Many thought the band would simply call it quits. Instead, they found Brian Johnson, a singer from the English band Geordie. Johnson's audition happened in March 1980, just weeks after Scott's death. The band was still grieving, but they'd already written music for a new album with Scott before he died. Malcolm and Angus Young knew they had something special in those songs, and they needed someone who could match Scott's raw power without trying to imitate him. Johnson's raspy, full-throttle delivery fit perfectly. Johnson's first album with AC/DC, Back in Black, arrived in July 1980. The timing couldn't have been more uncertain. Fans wondered if anyone could fill Scott's shoes, and the band was recording what amounted to a tribute to their fallen friend. The all-black album cover said it all, but something extraordinary happened when that album hit the stores. Back in Black became one of the best-selling albums in history with over 50 million copies sold worldwide. It reached number 1 in the UK and number 4 in the United States. Suddenly, AC/DC was everywhere. Radio stations that had never touched their music before were playing them constantly. The album stayed on the charts for years, not weeks. Songs from that record still fill arenas today, and it's often cited as one of the greatest rock albums ever made. Johnson wasn't done proving himself. For Those About to Rock We Salute You in 1981 hit number 1 in the United States, giving AC/DC their first American chart topper. Album after album through the 80s and 90s went multi-platinum, while Bon Scott will always be remembered as a rock and roll legend. There's no denying that AC/DC reached their commercial peak with Brian Johnson behind the microphone. The band became one of the biggest arena acts on the planet during Johnson's tenure, selling over 200 million records total. Number 14. Van Halen with Sammy Hagar. David Lee Roth left Van Halen in 1985 after nearly a decade as the band's flamboyant frontman. The band had already conquered the rock world with Roth's acrobatic stage antics and party-ready attitude, but internal tensions finally pulled things apart. Eddie Van Halen and Roth had been clashing for years over the band's direction. When Sammy Hagar joined that same year, he brought a different energy entirely. Hagar had been fronting Montrose in the 70s and enjoying a solo career throughout the 80s. So he wasn't some unknown quantity. He'd had hits on his own and knew how to work a crowd. But what he did with Van Halen surprised everyone. Where Roth had been all swagger and acrobatics, Hagar brought a more melodic, serious approach to the vocals. He could hit higher notes, and he played guitar, which gave the band new possibilities in the studio and on stage. The band's first album with Hagar, 5150, came out in 1986 and shot straight to number 1 on the Billboard 200. It was actually Van Halen's first number 1 album ever, despite all their success with Roth. The album sold over 6 million copies and spawned multiple hit singles. Critics who expected the band to collapse without Roth had to eat their words. The hits kept coming. OU 812 in 1988 also hit number 1, as did For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge in 1991 and Balance in 1995. 4 consecutive #1 albums with Hagar compared to 0 #1s with Roth during the original run, the band sold more records during the Hagar years than they ever had before. Tours sold out instantly, and Van Halen became one of the biggest rock acts in the world. The music was different, more polished and radio-friendly with less of the raw party vibe that defined the Roth era. Some longtime fans preferred the old sound, but the commercial success spoke for itself. Van Halen with Sammy Hagar dominated rock radio through the late 80s and early 90s in a way they never quite managed with Roth, at least commercially. Number 13. Genesis with Phil Collins. Phil Collins was already sitting behind the drums when Peter Gabriel left Genesis in 1975. Gabriel had been the face of the band, wearing costumes and telling stories on stage while the band played their intricate progressive rock compositions. The band auditioned over 400 singers to replace Gabriel's theatrical presence, but nobody seemed quite right. Eventually, they asked Collins to give it a shot himself.
Out in my garden, the moon seems fake.
The transition happened gradually. Collins started singing lead on A Trick of the Tail in 1976, and the album actually charted higher than any previous Genesis record in the UK, reaching number 3. It proved the band could survive without Gabriel, but the real transformation took years. As Genesis moved into the 80s, they shifted away from the long, complex progressive rock pieces that had defined their Gabriel era. Collins brought a more straightforward, emotional approach to the songwriting. His voice was different too, less theatrical and more intimate. Songs became shorter, catchier, more focused on melody than on musical complexity. The band started using drum machines and synthesizers in ways they never had before. Old fans complained they were selling out, but new fans couldn't get enough. With Collins as frontman, Genesis became a pop powerhouse. Invisible Touch in 1986 went multi-platinum and gave them their only #1 single in America. The album sold over 6 million copies in the United States alone and spawned 5 top 5 singles. Genesis was suddenly all over MTV and pop radio stations that would never have touched their Gabriel-era material. We Can't Dance in 1991 also hit number 4 on the Billboard 200 and sold millions. Collins brought a more accessible songwriting style, and radio stations couldn't get enough of it. His solo career was also exploding during this time, which only raised Genesis's profile higher. Peter Gabriel had left Genesis to pursue art rock experimentation and found success doing that, but Phil Collins led Genesis to stadiums, MTV, and pop culture dominance that dwarfed anything the band had achieved before. Number 12. Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio. Ozzy Osbourne's firing from Black Sabbath in 1979 seemed like the end of an era. He'd been the voice of heavy metal's founding fathers for a decade, creating some of the most influential albums in rock history. The band had invented heavy metal, but by the late 70s, they were struggling with substance abuse issues and creative stagnation. Their last few albums with Ozzy hadn't matched the power of their early work. When they finally let him go, many assumed Black Sabbath was finished. But when Ronnie James Dio came aboard, Black Sabbath got a second wind that nobody saw coming. Dio had made his name with Rainbow, Ritchie Blackmore's band, after he left Deep Purple, and he brought a powerful operatic style that was completely different from Ozzy's dark mumble. Where Ozzy had been raw and menacing, Dio was precise and theatrical. He could actually sing, hitting notes that Ozzy never attempted. The first album with Dio, Heaven and Hell, came out in 1980 and climbed to number 28 on the Billboard 200. That might not sound spectacular, but it was Black Sabbath's highest charting album in the United States at that point in their career. None of the Ozzy-era albums had cracked the top 30 in America, despite their massive influence. Heaven and Hell sold over 1 million copies and introduced the band to a new generation of metal fans. The songs were tighter, more focused, and Dio's vocals gave them a dramatic intensity they'd never quite achieved before. Tony Iommi's guitar work was rejuvenated too, as if Dio's presence pushed him to write better riffs. The album got regular rotation on rock radio, something Black Sabbath had struggled to achieve in the 70s. Mob Rules in 1981 kept the momentum going, reaching number 29 on the Billboard 200 and also going gold. Dio gave Black Sabbath credibility with younger metal fans who'd never paid attention to the band before. While Ozzy went on to massive solo success throughout the 80s, Black Sabbath proved they could thrive without him, at least for a while. The Dio years remained beloved by metal fans and showed that Black Sabbath was bigger than any single member. Number 11. Journey with Steve Perry. Journey spent their first 3 albums wandering through progressive rock territory in the mid-70s. Their records barely dented the charts, and their label, Columbia Records, was getting impatient. The band was facing the possibility of being dropped. Everything changed when Steve Perry joined in 1977. Manager Herbie Herbert had discovered Perry singing in a small club and knew immediately that this was the voice Journey needed. Perry's soaring tenor voice transformed Journey from a jam band into one of the biggest arena rock acts in America. Infinity, their first album with Perry, went platinum and reached number 21 on the Billboard 200. Finally, Journey had radio hits and a sound that connected with mainstream audiences. The band kept building momentum through the late 70s. Evolution in 1979 went multi-platinum and hit number 20. Departure in 1980 reached number 8. But the real breakthrough came with Escape in 1981. That album shot to number 1, sold over 9 million copies in the United States alone, and included some of the most recognizable rock songs ever recorded. Journey was suddenly one of the biggest bands in the world. Number 10. Iron Maiden with Bruce Dickinson. Paul Di'Anno fronted Iron Maiden through their first 2 albums in 1980 and 1981. The band had built a following in the new wave of British heavy metal movement, and those early records had a raw, punky edge that fit the times perfectly. But Di'Anno's raw, punky vocals had limitations. His range was restricted, and his lifestyle was catching up with him. The band needed someone who could take them to the next level. When Bruce Dickinson replaced him in 1981, Iron Maiden elevated to a completely different level. Dickinson had been singing for a band called Samson, and he brought a trained, theatrical vocal style that gave Iron Maiden more range and power. He'd actually turned down Iron Maiden once before, but this time, he recognized the opportunity. His operatic delivery was unlike anything else in heavy metal at the time. His first album with the band, The Number of the Beast in 1982, became their breakthrough. It hit number 1 in the UK, their first chart topper, and went platinum in the United States. The title track became one of heavy metal's most iconic songs, and Dickinson's performance was a huge part of why. Suddenly, Iron Maiden was headlining major venues and getting serious radio play. From there, Iron Maiden became one of the most successful heavy metal bands in the world. Peace of Mind in 1983 hit number 3 in the UK and went platinum in the US. Power Slave in 1984 also went platinum. Album after album through the 80s and into the 90s went gold and platinum across multiple countries. They headlined massive festivals like Rock in Rio and sold out arenas everywhere. Their elaborate stage shows featuring the band's mascot Eddie became legendary. Dickinson's operatic delivery matched perfectly with the band's complex song structures and historical lyrics. Steve Harris could write longer, more ambitious songs, knowing Dickinson could handle them. While the Di'Anno years had promise and created a foundation, the Dickinson era brought global domination. Iron Maiden sold over 100 million records worldwide with Dickinson, becoming one of the most enduring metal bands in history. Number 9. Alice in Chains with William Duvall. Lane Staley's death in 2002 left Alice in Chains in an impossible position. Staley's haunting voice had defined the band's sound through the grunge era. For years, the remaining members thought Alice in Chains was finished. They performed reunion shows with guest vocalists, but avoided recording new material. When William Duvall joined permanently in 2006, skepticism ran deep. How could anyone replace Lane Staley? But Duvall didn't try to be Staley. He brought his own style while respecting the band's legacy. The first album with Duvall, Black Gives Way to Blue in 2009, debuted at number 5 on the Billboard 200. Number 8. Deep Purple with David Coverdale. Coverdale's bluesy, soulful approach gave Deep Purple a different flavor. Burn, in 1974, reached number 3 in the UK and went gold in the United States. The album showcased a heavier, more blues-influenced sound than the Gillan years. Stormbringer later that same year also performed well commercially. While Coverdale only recorded 3 studio albums with Deep Purple before the band broke up in 1976, those records kept Deep Purple relevant during a transitional period. Coverdale later went on to form Whitesnake and became a major star in his own right. But his time with Deep Purple proved the band could survive without Gillan and still sell records. Number 7. Fleetwood Mac with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. Fleetwood Mac had been around since 1967, churning through British blues rock with various lineups. Founder Peter Green had left in 1970, and the band went through several iterations trying to find their identity. They'd had moderate success in the UK, especially in the early days with Green, but by 1974 the band was barely holding together in California. Bassist John McVie and drummer Mick Fleetwood were the constants, but they were struggling to find the right sound and the right people. When Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks joined on New Year's Eve 1974, Fleetwood Mac transformed from a struggling blues outfit into a pop-rock juggernaut. Buckingham and Nicks had been performing as a duo and had recorded an album together called Buckingham Nicks that didn't sell well, but Mick Fleetwood heard their potential and convinced them to join his band. The self-titled album Fleetwood Mac in 1975 hit number 1 in the United States and sold over 5 million copies. Songs got constant radio play, and suddenly this British blues band that had been around for years was an American sensation. Nicks's distinctive voice and mystical stage presence captivated audiences, while Buckingham's guitar work and production skills gave the band a polished, contemporary sound. Number 6. Judas Priest with Tim Ripper Owens. Rob Halford left Judas Priest in 1992, taking one of the most distinctive voices in heavy metal with him. The band searched for years before finding Tim Ripper Owens, a tribute band singer who'd been fronting a Judas Priest cover band called British Steel. Owens' story seemed too good to be true. A fan who sounded so much like Halford that he got hired to replace him. The first album with Owens, Jugulator, in 1997, debuted at number 82 on the Billboard 200. That might seem disappointing, but Judas Priest hadn't charted that high since Ram It Down in 1988. Demolition in 2001 reached number 155, showing that while Owens couldn't quite match Halford's commercial peak, he kept the band active and relevant during Halford's absence. More importantly, Owens proved Judas Priest could continue without their legendary frontman, even if temporarily. When Halford returned in 2003, the band had survived intact. Number 5. Stone Temple Pilots with Chester Bennington. When Scott Weiland left Stone Temple Pilots in 2013, the band needed someone who could handle their catalog and bring fresh energy. Chester Bennington of Linkin Park stepped in, creating one of rock's most unexpected collaborations. Bennington had one of the most powerful voices in modern rock, and he brought intensity to Stone Temple Pilots that energized the band. The EP High Rise in 2013 showed what this lineup could do. While no full album emerged before Bennington returned to Linkin Park, the collaboration proved Stone Temple Pilots could attract A-list talent and remain relevant. The band toured extensively with Bennington, playing to enthusiastic crowds who appreciated hearing STP's classics delivered with such passion. Though brief, Bennington's tenure demonstrated that Stone Temple Pilots had life beyond Wyland and could still fill venues. His tragic death in 2017 cut short what might have become a remarkable second chapter for the band. Number 4, Motley Crue with John Corabi. Vince Neil's departure from Motley Crue in 1992 brought John Corabi into the fold. Corabi had been fronting a band called The Scream, and he offered something completely different from Neil's glam metal snarl. The self-titled album Motley Crue in 1994 showcased a heavier, grungier sound that reflected the changing times. While it only reached number 7 on the Billboard 200, that was actually comparable to some of the band's earlier albums. The record went gold, selling over 500,000 copies. Critics actually praised the Corabi album for its musical depth and maturity. It showed Motley Crue could adapt to the 90s rock landscape. However, fans missed Neil's voice, and the band eventually brought him back. Still, Corabi's one album with Motley Crue demonstrated the band's versatility and willingness to take risks, even if it didn't match the commercial heights of the Neil era. Number 3, the Doobie Brothers with Michael McDonald. The Doobie Brothers started as a California rock band with a rootsy, guitar-driven sound. Tom Johnston handled lead vocals through their early hits in the early 70s. When Johnston's health issues forced him to step back in 1975, the band brought in Michael McDonald as a temporary replacement. McDonald's soulful R&B influenced voice took the Doobie Brothers in a completely new direction, taking it to the streets. In 1976, went platinum and reached number 8 on the Billboard 200. The title track became one of their biggest hits, but the real commercial breakthrough came with Minute by Minute in 1978. That album hit number 1, won 4 Grammy Awards, and sold over 3 million copies. It was the Doobie Brothers' most successful album ever. McDonald had transformed them from a rock band into a sophisticated blue-eyed soul outfit. When Johnston returned for reunion tours in the 80s and beyond, the Doobie Brothers honored both eras. But McDonald's years brought them to their commercial peak. Number 2, Sublime with Rome Ramirez. When Bradley Nowell died in 1996, Sublime ended. The band had just released their self-titled breakthrough album, and it seemed impossible to continue without Nowell's unique voice and songwriting. For over a decade, surviving members Eric Wilson and Bud Gaw left Sublime in the past. In 2009, they decided to play again, bringing in Rome Ramirez, a young singer and guitarist who grew up listening to Sublime. Legal issues prevented them from using the name Sublime, so they became Sublime with Rome. Their first album, Yours Truly, in 2011 debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200, selling over 45,000 copies in its first week. That was a remarkable achievement for what many considered a tribute act. Sirens in 2015 reached number 26. While purists argued about whether Sublime with Rome could ever match the original, the commercial numbers showed a hungry audience for this music. Ramirez gave Wilson a way to keep playing Sublime songs and introduced them to a new generation. Number 1, INXS with J.D. Fortune. When Michael Hutchence died in 1997, INXS lost one of rock's most charismatic frontmen. The Australian band had been massive throughout the 80s and early 90s, with hits that dominated MTV and radio worldwide. For years, the remaining members couldn't imagine continuing without Hutchence's voice and presence.
that's okay.
In 2005, INXS decided to search for a new singer through a reality television show called Rockstar INXS. Thousands of singers auditioned, and the competition played out on CBS over several weeks. J.D. Fortune, a Canadian singer who'd been living in his car before the audition, emerged as the winner. Fortune's first album with INXS, Switch, came out in 2005 and debuted at number 17 on the Billboard 200. That was INXS's highest chart position since Welcome to Wherever You Are in 1992. The album went gold in several countries and gave the band renewed commercial momentum they hadn't experienced since Hutchins' death. The partnership was rocky at times, with Fortune leaving and rejoining the band multiple times between 2005 and 2011. But his arrival proved INXS could continue performing and recording after tragedy. The album went gold in several countries and brought the band back to stages around the world, introducing their music to a new generation while honoring the band's legacy. Change isn't always the end. Sometimes it's just the beginning of something even bigger. These 15 bands prove that the right voice at the right time can take you places you never imagined. Some transitions were planned, others were forced by tragedy or tension, but all of them led to commercial success that might not have happened otherwise. If you enjoyed this look back at rock history, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the music we grew up with. Thanks for watching.